Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphin Radio. And now, here's your hosts, Brad Michaels and John Bach. All right, folks, welcome back to this week's last edition of Dolphin Radio for the season. The season is over. We finish it out with a win. And then I think the shock heard round the National Football League, obviously. And as a Dolphin fan, we've talked about this all year long. If one went, the other should go, and or if one of them had to go and one of them stayed. What ended up happening on Monday, it's just an absolute head scratcher, complete shock. Brian Flores is out as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Guys, John, I'm going to you first. What's your take on this? Because we've talked about it all season long.
Well, I thought long and hard about this. I was really upset that we fired Coach Flores. I thought he had this team on the winning track. They talk about things doing the Patriot way. I thought he tried to implement that down here to Miami. But it reminds me of Belichick getting fired in Cleveland because they weren't ready for him yet. And it took Belichick another, 10 years to get a head job, or 8 years or whatever it was to get a head job.
A long time.
So I think it could be a blessing in disguise for Brian Flores. I think he's a great football coach, but maybe he's got a little bit more to learn on how to deal with personnel. That seems what the issue was.
Yeah.
But I would cap that off by saying that for the last 20 years, there's only been two constants in Miami. And one is owner Ross, and the other one is Chris Greer. We have not won a playoff game since Chris Greer started working for the Miami Dolphins. So if you're going to make a decision that there's something inside the franchise that had to change, I would have went with Flores, who's been around people that have won, versus Greer, who's been through 10 head coaches since he's been employed with the Miami Dolphins.
Good point. Very good point. Rodney, welcome. Guys, we want to welcome to the show. This is Rodney Quick. Rodney, you're in, was it Pennsylvania or New Jersey? I forget.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, that's what I thought. Okay. Welcome to the show.
Welcome,
What's your
Rodney.
thoughts?
I'm honored and happy to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
So, a longtime Dolphin fan, you've got to be just like all of us. You got to be in shock. What are your overall thoughts on the incidents that occurred on Monday morning, early?
Well, to say I'm in shock would be an understatement. I mean, I went from being high as a kite after that win Sunday against the Patriots, feeling as good as you could feel as a Dolphin after, as a Dolphin after this season. And then I wake up the next day and I hear that, and I'm just in utter shock. I mean, I thought Coach Flores did a great job. I hear that maybe he was a little hard on players. He was a little hard-nosed at times. But, I mean, if it's a discipline thing, I have no problem with a coach being, a disciplinarian. If he feels something's not right, he's got to address it, and you can't fault him for that. And as far as I know, all the players in the locker room, liked and respected him. I had never heard any negative stuff until after he was fired.
Well, and I think that we don't hear the negative stuff because the team kind of keeps that, that's all internal. That's stuff that stays in the locker room, and John could certainly support that. I do think, and now I remember, there was one incident that happened, and it was when Tua was hurt, when Tua was out. Tua's personal trainer made some derogatory tweets regarding Coach Flores, and is your dog attacking Coach Flores or Chris Greer? He made some derogatory comments, and Tua never did come to the coach's defense, and that was pointed out by somebody. Chris, you told me though, and I was very upset by what you told me that you had heard through one of your sources of how the firing kind of went down. I understand he was fired, but the language, talk about Ross wants to he wanted somebody that could talk better to people and treat them better, supposedly, than Greer was having, or than Flores was reported to have treated certain people. And we're going to talk about that a little bit also. But I want you to tell everybody what you told me how Flores was told that he was fired.
No, just Ross, basically told him to, pack his stuff up and leave. And, he was, his parking sign was taken down during the game, is what I've been told. So, his parking sign at Hard Rock Stadium was removed, and, so Ross was just, basically just told, Flores to pack your stuff up and leave.
So, that's to tell somebody pack your stuff and leave.
Disrespectful.
That's disrespectful. And then to go even further, if the story about removing his sign from his parking spot during the game, if that is correct, that's also very disrespectful in my opinion. John, what would you think?
Urban Meyer got more respect from this for his misbehavior this year in Jacksonville. If any of that's true, maybe that's the problem with this organization is Ross doesn't know how to pick winners. You pick winners in real estate. That doesn't mean you know how to pick winners in sports. And as we've seen, the only constant we've had for being unsuccessful here for the last 20 years is Chris Greer.
Yep.
Now, again, I'm going to go on record. Coach Flo, I'm sure he's no worse than Jimmy Johnson or Bill Belichick or Don Shula.
I was just going to say,
so
Don
Shula. If you're looking to take 20, you want to have a whole team of 20, 21, 22-year-old kids, and if you want a guy who's going to communicate all the time, that will not work. They are still young men, and they still need discipline. They are not Tom Brady at 43 or 44 years old. They are not a seasoned vet at 31, 32 years old. This team was made out of kids, and from the beginning of the year, we talked about that lack of maturity in the locker room can haunt you. And it did. It cost us 2 games, that immaturity in the locker room, because our roster was so young, and that was a concern of ours from the beginning.
Yes, it was. And, to go further, and we talked about this all year long. Well, actually, very early in the year, I think back in training camp, we were discussing the differences between coaching in the National Football League in the 70s, or even in the 80s or 90s for that matter, versus today. You mentioned it to me, and I'd never even thought of it, but, you said, how do you coach a millionaire? Because nowadays, these players make more. It used to be the coaches made more, at least the head coach, made more than most of the players, except for maybe your star quarterback or running back or something like that. Now it's almost every single player is making more money in a single season than the head coach. And it's like, how do you coach these kids that are multimillionaires?
It's also this. Howard Schnellenberger said it best. He was the coordinator for the undefeated Dolphins. He was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts. And when he failed as a head coach, he came with the realization that football is the hardest game for millionaires to play because of motivation. When you finally get that money, it's a hard sport. It's going to tax you all the time. And if you have coaches leaning on you as a pro, it makes it even more difficult. So, it's not like playing basketball for millions of dollars. When you're playing football for millions of dollars, there is significant damage to your body, and that's why the average career is 3.3 years. If you actually make a roster, it's 5.3 years. That's it.
Wow, it's all across the board. So, that's just, more hats off, and I know everybody hates, especially in Dolphin land, everybody hates to hear this, but my hat's off to a guy like Tom Brady that, what is he, 44? He'll be 45 next season. It's just incredible that he's in the shape that he's in, and he continues to play at such a high level.
Doesn't miss a beat.
No, hasn't missed a beat at all. And I know, Chris, I know you hate Tom Brady, but don't you have to have a little bit of respect for the guy for what he's done?
Sure.
Don't you have to? You got to have a little respect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For what he's done, for how long he's continued to play, I never seen a quarterback as old as Tom Brady is to continue to do what he does, and that's honestly that is amazing for how long he's still playing at a high level, and like you said, he's almost to his mid-40s, so hats off to him for sure.
That's a once in a lifetime thing in this league.
Yeah, and only one other guy that comes to mind for me, and of course, by the time he was up in his 40s, he really wasn't playing quarterback at a high level. He was a kicker, and that would have been George Blanda.
True.
John, I got to ask you this. A lot of the players, Nick Needham, he tweeted, I'm sick AF. We all know what that means with the tears emoji. But not every. There was a lot of other players that spoke up in Flores' defense. Two of them, but not everybody. And one of the players that actually came right out and was really kind of tough on Flores was former player Kenny Stills. Of course, we're going to talk about the Tunsil trade that Stills was a part of. But he said, he was never really a Flores kind of guy. He was traded pretty soon in that 2019 season. But somebody had tweeted out something about what about Flo? And Kenny Stills tweeted back, respect Flo as a coach. IDK, I don't know about the other shit he was on. Now, that other shit was basically he was referring to rumors. And I've heard this in the last couple of days. I don't know about you guys, but supposedly Flores was having Tua tested for PEDs multiple times throughout the season because he couldn't believe that his body transformation was natural.
That's all a lie. The coaches have no control of PEDs.
I didn't think so. I thought that's more in that the NFL.
You get drug tested once a year, and you get random ED testing throughout the year.
Right.
Some years I've been tested as much as 10 times, and other years I wasn't tested at all. So, but that is controlled by the league. It comes from league offices, and they call their courier or their testing provider, and they send the courier over, or the testing agent, whatever you want to call them. You go into a bathroom, you have to piss right in front of them or take your blood work right in front of them. So there's no hiding anything. And that all comes from the league. So that's an NFL policy. Flores never did that. He never had anybody tested, nor would he, because no matter if you like the guy or not, if you were the coach and flagged the guy and got him off your roster, that is bad for your team, and it's bad for the income in the NFL. They do not allow that. The NFL makes all those calls.
Well, and I would think also,
Kenny Stills, I could care less about the guy. He wasn't a great player for us. Exactly. He was a pain in the ass. So let him go and say what he wants to say. But you're a damn professional football player. You know exactly what the rules are. You know exactly what the testing is. So you're stirring up crap, and I don't want to hear it from you. You're a loser. Move on.
Coming from a player that can't even get on the field in New Orleans.
True.
I just don't care about him.
Yeah,
he knows what the rules are. He knows what the NFL does. That is misinformation to create controversy. Kenny's doing that, and he's showing what his real character is, in my opinion.
Well, and he's doing
That's
that also.
dumb.
Yeah, he's doing that also. He's just trying to further hurt Coach Flores. And I'm still really upset about this firing. I was like you, John, and well, all of you guys. We all thought this team, despite the 1-7 start, intestinal fortitude, determination, whatever it was, and a lot of it was Coach Flores. We ended up rattling off a 7-game win streak, and we went 8-1 in the last 9 games of the season and almost made the playoffs, despite that young roster playing like crap for the first 8 weeks of the season.
First time we swept the Patriots in how many years?
Yeah, 20.
Back-to-back win seasons.
I'll play devil's advocate right now.
Okay.
One is, we had 3 guys involved with the play calling this year, and our offense was inept.
Yeah.
That is not the right way to run a football team. You're a defensive guy. He couldn't fix the offense. 2, him and Greer obviously had a big debate whether it was Justin Herbert or Tua.
Yeah.
So the GM picked Tua, and he also gave up another number 1 pick for us to get Waddle. So basically Waddle cost us 2 number 1 picks, who was the only player in that offense that exceeded expectations, in my opinion. I thought Gesicki was below average. So you're the head coach in a league that's an offensive league that people want to score. This is Miami. This is not Green Bay. This is not Kansas City even, which are teams that can score now. But typically Bears, Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, Northern teams, New York Giants have been ball control offenses. So, and one with great defense. I mean, the two best defenses in history are probably the 85 Bears and the 87 Giants.
Yeah.
And they won with defense. So you're in an offensive league. You have a big problem on the offensive side of the ball with the coach, with coaching. As the head coach, you also had a problem coaching defense, and you were a defensive coach. That team didn't turn around till Flores took over the defensive signal calling on game 8, I believe. It was 9.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was against
and then
Baltimore.
The defense started playing well. So if you're an owner, okay, and you do have young talent on that field, I mean, Javon Holland to me is a steal of the draft, and so is Waddle to steal the draft for us. We have a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball. So if you're an owner and you're looking at what's going on right now, this is why I think it's a blessing in disguise for Flores. I think he has more to learn. I know we all respect him. We didn't want him to go. We wanted Greer to go. I get that. But if you look at his coaching this year, he lost to 2 bad teams by missed field goals.
Yeah.
His kicking game wasn't in place. He's a defensive guy. His defensive guy wasn't in place till he took over the play calling. And then you had that debacle on offense with personnel and with play calling and multiple people being involved, being co-coordinators. So if you're an owner or you're a manager of a company and you have to look at what your division head is doing, well, he was subpar in all 3 categories. And that is the truth about what happened with Flores. I think he has ability. I think he's going to be a great coach one day. But you have to look that he was failing in all 3 sides of the football. And then you add in the personal, the disgruntled employees that were dealing with them, whether if it's just or not. And I don't think it's just.
I don't either.
But just like Belichick, I think what happened to Flores is what happened to Belichick in Cleveland. And when this is all said and done, I think Flores is going to win multiple Super Bowls, and he's going to build some great teams when he's in the right place.
I would agree with you, Rodney. Any thoughts before because I'm going to talk about one other thing about Flores' relationships with players and one particular player. Rodney and Chris, I want to get to you guys. Rodney, we'll go to you first. Any other thoughts on what John, follow up to what John just said?
Well, I think he hit a couple nails right on the head when he was saying how the defense didn't start to really excel until, basically Flo told Boyer, well, let me show you how it's done. And they really kicked it into gear. And then when they went through that 6-game stretch where they had how many sacks? I can't even remember how many, but it was insane.
45 at one time.
That was incredible, and then
45, I think, on the total year, but most of them coming in that 7-game stretch.
Yeah, you're right. And then the other thing was I knew right from the get-go, the very first day I heard that we were going to have co-offensive coordinators, not to mention a quarterback coach. I knew that was just a disaster waiting to happen. And, as we all saw, that was exactly what happened. Too many hands in the pot. It's like, okay, who's going to call the play this play? Who's going to – there had to be mass confusion, especially for a young quarterback like Tua.
Oh, absolutely. Chris, let me come over to you. What your follow up to what John just talked about in the fact that Flores did pretty much fail in every aspect of the coaching this year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what John says. I mean, Flores pretty much had a stool, if you will. Boyer, have to run things, on his side of the position. I just think, like we said, we started off real slow, and by having 2 coordinators is a real disaster waiting to happen, like Rodney says. And I think we just go back to just having one coordinator, but just like the Jaguars game was a disaster, and I just think we should go back to fundamentals and just stick with one coordinator, and that way you don't have to have two guys talking in the same helmet as Tua. It's I feel bad for Tua because you have two coordinators talking to him at the same time now how to run a play. I just think it was a total mistake to have that, and I think that should be absolutely corrected.
Well, I think that will be, and one thing that happens, and I think one of the reasons that I'm hoping that Stephen Ross will now move on and hire somebody with some head coaching experience. Because as was pointed out, and it's true, if you look at a lot of guys that come in, first-time head coach, okay, it's hard for these. They don't have a following. They don't have guys that are going with them particularly to be a defensive coordinator or to be an offensive coordinator or to be, any position coach. Guys that have been a head coach before in this league, they have guys that will go with them. So when you're brand new, you have pretty much an entirely new staff, guys that are all in their position maybe for the first time. And so that hurts you as well. And we all know Flores went through, what was it? Well, if you count the two-headed monster this year at offensive coordinator, that was 4 offensive coordinators basically in 3 seasons. He had two defensive coordinators. He's had 2 or 3 offensive line coaches. So it was tough for him to put a staff together, but a lot of people are saying that Flores, he rubbed people the wrong way. This is what the other one that I was going to talk about. The other player that is most mentioned as being so-called mistreated or didn't like the way that, or didn't have a good relationship with Flores, as it turned out, was Tua Tagovailoa, who now it's being reported that their relationship was really bad, as was Flores' relationship with Greer. But I have a problem with Tua having a problem with the coach because supposedly at the Tennessee game at halftime, trying to get the adjustments down, Flores had some colorful language. As a matter of fact, I believe that the F-bomb was dropped a couple of times, aimed at his quarterback. And his quarterback said something to the tune of, "You can't treat people this way." And he said, "Well, I'd like to get better effing play out of the quarterback position." Now, if you're going to have virgin ears, so to say, and get offended at a couple of words, maybe they're being directed at you, maybe they're not. And Tua has later downplayed this. Oh, that was not that big of a deal. It's just football talk. Well, you're damn right it's football talk, because I'd like some of these players, some of these guys that so-called can't take the heated language of football. God, go back 30 years. Go back 40 years. Be in one of Don Shula's training camps or one of Don Shula's locker rooms and listen to how many times you got your ass cussed out by Don Shula and dropping F-bombs on you. From what I've heard, the F-bomb was probably an everyday occurrence every 10 minutes or so at Miami Dolphins training camp. Shula had some very colorful language throughout the years.
If Tua thought Flores was tough, imagine if Mike Ditka was his coach.
Jeez. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess it would have ripped into him.
John, how was Johnson? You played for Johnson and you knew Shula.
Well, you guys don't remember Dan Marino's last game then?
Oh, God, yes, I do. Yeah.
That's how bad that relationship was. When Jimmy Johnson goes, "That guy wants to be my damn quarterback," then leave him the hell in there right now when Jacksonville was up by 40 on us. So, and that was a big fight. We had that fight. The whole fight with Marino was Jimmy Johnson wanted to line the eye back up at 8 yards. And what we realized was with Dan's injuries, Dan couldn't get the ball to our tailback at 8 yards.
Yeah, he can't.
So we had to move the tailback up to 7 yards. And in Jimmy Johnson's mind, that was so much different than what they were doing with Emmitt Smith and everybody at Dallas. And the reads didn't fit right, and the angles didn't fit right. So, and then we didn't have a standout tailback on top of it. So that was, Jimmy Johnson, we went through 4 years of this. So Jimmy Johnson and Dan didn't get along, but neither one of them brought it to our attention. And they both were professionals, and they had their own struggle with each other, but they kept all the players out of it. And we all knew Jimmy wanted Dan gone. We wanted Dan retired. The irony of everything is Dan finally retires a week after Jimmy quits and rides off in the sunset in his Corvette all the way down to the Keys. Then Wanstead gets the head job. Dan retires, and Dave Wanstead wins our only playoff game in the last 21 damn years because Dan finally retired, and that was the piece that we were missing. We were missing Dan moving on with his life. So I know it sounds disrespectful to Dan, but in order for us to run what we wanted to run here, which was the offense that was put in place, the tailback had to be at 8 yards. Lamar Smith had one of the best one-year careers in NFL history in that year, moving him back to 8 yards deep.
Yeah.
When Jay Fiedler took over. So there's so much more to this, guys. It's the coaches, yeah. It's the players, yes. But the players have to work inside the system, and the GM has to work with the head coach. Those two had a bad relationship. It didn't work out. But there's also been 10 other head coaches who have not been able to work with the GM here. So something is going on.
Well, and we talked about that a little bit last week when we had our bully wimp segment. And, what are we going to end up? I hope. I just want a football coach. We just had
3 to 1 odds. We go wimp on this hire.
Probably. I mean, according to what we normally do, it'll probably be. I can't say anything. I'm not gonna pinpoint one or the other. But
I'm guessing it's Caldwell over Harbaugh.
I was just gonna say Caldwell, but I didn't want to say it. It's gonna be somebody like a sleepy Joe Philbin again. It's just come on. We just had a football coach. We just had a guy that I think I agree with you, John. And Chris, Rodney, you guys probably agree too. Flores is going to move on. Flores, he's already interviewing. He's going to be successful. The Bears are going to. If the Bears hire him, he's going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's no way he was going to be out of work very long. I knew people would be knocking on his door.
I mean, a day after the guy is fired, he's sitting down with Chicago interviewing for their head job. I mean, that was quick. This is almost
good for him.
And he's not going to be like Adam Gase. He is not going to fizzle out in his next job. So
absolutely not.
All right, let's get on to. We could talk about this probably, into ad nauseum. I don't want to. I want to move on. I want to talk about the game. There was a lot of bright spots in the game, which is obviously another thing that made the firing so surprising. And then last week we talked about the Tunsil trade in the draft picks and the haul that we got from Houston. I broke that down. Actually, I found an article from November 6th from Alan Poupart over at Fan Nation. And Alan he's covered the Dolphins for various outlets since 1989. So he has a very good take on everything. But he broke down that trade completely, and we'll come back to that. But let's go to the statistics. And John, I know I sent you over the game book. I've got it pulled up. Very impressive day again from Duke Johnson.
Yeah, well, Duke Johnson came out of nowhere. He ran the football well. He's a Miami favorite. He's a Miami guy. I'm hoping that he gets re-signed. And I don't know if he's an every down back or not, but the guy's obviously proved we can pay him minimum and be happy with him. So I think he's done very well. What do you have?
117 yards on 25 attempts.
4.7 yard average, 47 long. Lindsey came in 10 for 40.
Yep.
3.8 yard average. And then that was it.
Yeah, so again, you got nothing out of Gaskin.
That's the best. Is that the best production we've had all year?
I believe so. It was 195 yards, and I think the first week that Johnson had his breakout game, we ended up with like 170 or 180. So we topped that. This was the best production. And I think overall, as far as the average, I think our 4.5 yard average was the best we'd gotten all year too.
Well, we got enough on the running game, but again, you want to know why Flores got fired? Net passing 103 yards.
Yeah. Despite, I mean, and people put too much emphasis on the rating. The quarterback rating, first of all, I mean, unless you know the internal workings of the football, the quarterback pass rating, The league is never going to tell you what the multipliers, because there's obviously some multiple multipliers in this thing that they use. And I don't understand how they come up with that number, because it just doesn't make any sense to me how a guy gets, okay, it's 15 for 22, 109 yards, sacked once for a loss of 6, only threw 1 touchdown, and he's got a 94.7. And you're telling me that the overall top rating could be what, about 145, is it? I don't understand how they do the quarterback rating, and I don't think that it's a very good measuring stick of a quarterback's effectiveness in a game. I really don't. Mac Jones looked like crap all day for the most part, and he got a 91.1.
Well, that's all
Yeah,
I'm
he
saying.
did
But,
throw to Mac Jones.
yeah, but the big stats, though, I mean, again, we ran the ball well.
Yep.
We couldn't throw the ball down the field. They shut down Waddle. So Devontae Parker, we only have 2 plays that we complete to Gesicki and Parker. And it's a slant or a skinny post in the middle of the field in front of Tua. Those are the only 2 balls we can throw outside of Waddle's little hitches and deep crossing route, but we can't block long enough to get the deep crossing route. That's why we're sacked so much.
Right.
But again, we were 46% on third down, 50% is winning. New England was 50% on third down. So again, we didn't play well on third down. We got lucky to win this game. Our defense made plays. We won this game because of our defense. But again, that's one of the contributing factors that Flores' offense wasn't performing, even in a win like this. And Tua didn't perform. Gesicki's not performing. Devontae Parker hasn't done a damn thing all year. Preston Williams doesn't do anything. We got 2 balls we can throw right now, which are both seam routes down the middle of the field. That's it. So when you look at the offense, no, they didn't play well.
No,
but our defense played well. And that's what Flores was responsible for.
Yeah, our defense put us in a position. I'm
really happy with our defense. Javon Holland, to me, is one of my favorite players in the league. Xavier and Howard had a little bit of a slow start, came out great. I thought Jalen Phillips came on mid-season. I thought he played outstandingly on by. Christian Wilkins led us in tackles last week. I think Christian Wilkins is playing great. Baker and Barker, they're playing well enough. And a guy that I didn't really care for, Van Ginkel, whatever reason, the second half of the season, he made plays all over the field.
Yeah, he's come on.
Nick Needham did a decent enough job. So, I mean, I love our defense right now. We have to bring somebody in that's probably I don't know if he's going to be offensive minded or not, but he has to bring in somebody that can be a legit coordinator for this franchise, because we do not have that right now. We don't have enough offense to win enough games to be significant in the playoff hunt. We just do not. We have to find a way to increase our offensive production and at least try to stabilize our defensive production.
Well, my worry with this, and it's been an interesting week for me. Just, I guess, digesting all of this that's happened with Coach Flores, because I wonder, it looked like, despite a 1-7 start, it looked like we finally kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together a little bit. We were improving, and of course you said it, and the defense did. The defense sealed the day for the 8-1 finish. And a lot of that credit goes to Coach Flores looking at Boyer and saying, look, I'm taking over. Let me show you how this is done. So I'm worried, do we bring in a guy that has the defensive background, and then brings in a decent offensive coordinator? And for that, I think we need to have a guy like a Caldwell or a Dan Quinn, somebody that has actually had experience as a head coach on the sideline, so he's going to be able to bring in his staff. We're not bringing in a whole bunch of first-timers. I'm worried, though, that Ross, because every coach he's hired has been a first-time head coach. So I'm worried he's going to do it again. I'm worried that we have the same 800-pound gorilla in the room that's been there the past 20 years. As you pointed out, we haven't won a playoff game since he's been in the building. But he seems to be a yes man. and he seems to keep his job because that seems to be what the owner wants around him, is a whole bunch of yes people. I was told also that Flores was shown the door because he wanted more control. It was already that he had plenty of control, and he basically wanted even more control, and basically wanted a lot of control taken away from Chris Greer. But I'm worried. We've got a couple of candidates. Guys, I'm going to go one by one. John, who do you think, out of the candidates that have been talked about so far, who would you prefer?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Kind of a crapshoot.
Everyone's saying not Harbaugh.
Yeah.
But I think Harbaugh is the perfect fit for Ross right now. He's been a head coach. He's been in college. He's tried his thing at Michigan. But I really think that that's the best fit. And other than that, I don't know who he's going to go get. Doug Peterson would probably be the best fit. I don't think Nagy. I don't even know who else is out there.
Well, it's Dan Quinn. Caldwell's being talked about. The offensive coordinator in San Francisco, even though he doesn't call the plays because Shanahan calls the plays. And also Josh McDaniels' name, offensive coordinator from the Patriots. He's been mentioned. I don't know if we want to dip into the Belichick tree again. Any of the Belichick coaches, none of them have really panned out, including Josh McDaniel at his time with the Broncos?
Broncos.
So I'm leaning towards having somebody come in still with that defensive background and just get a decent offensive coordinator, get a decent offensive line coach, and let's get us a tackle. I don't want to do it in the draft. Go out free agency, get somebody that we know can play the position, move Eichenberg back in where he belongs, and let the rest of it shuffle out. Rodney, who would you take as head coach if you had your best wish?
Honestly, I've always been a big fan of offensive creativity as far as play calling, which would mean I would love to have Josh McDaniels if he was calling his own plays. But we don't have the personnel to probably run a lot of what he runs on offense. We need to majorly upgrade on a lot of things. So if I was going to have another choice, I like Doug Peterson, but I also am very intrigued by Dan Quinn.
I'm very intrigued by Dan
choices.
Quinn. Yeah, I'm very intrigued
All
by
very good choices.
And the reason that I mentioned this the other day, I said I would like Dan Quinn. And the reason I want Dan Quinn is he fits what I want, and he's a defensive coach. But I think he's learned his lesson. He's been to a Super Bowl. He learned his lesson. This will be his second time getting that chance, and I think he's going to be ready. I think you made that comparison to Belichick and Cleveland, and then it took him a long time to get another opportunity, and look what he's done with it. I think Dan Quinn is a guy like that, sitting in the waiting, ready to go. Chris, who would you pick if you had your wish?
I would go with Jim Caldwell or Doug Peterson.
Because of their connection to the Dolphins?
Just that's the fact their connections, and plus, Doug Peterson used to be the quarterback for the Dolphins way back in the day.
Well, he won Don Shula's 325th.
Right, and the fact that Doug Peterson, won the Super Bowl with the Eagles, and he really didn't have a true franchise quarterback, but he still won it. The Super Bowl with what they had. So, I would go with either Doug Peterson and Jim Caldwell.
My only problem, and Doug Peterson is an interesting choice here, and I've thought about Doug Peterson, and out of all of the candidates that are out there, if I couldn't get Dan Quinn, if I couldn't get maybe Caldwell or Josh McDaniel, I think Peterson would probably be about my fourth pick in there. I like the fact that he has connections to the Dolphins, and I like the fact that he's been in the head position once before. Not only that he coached, but he also coached a team to the Super Bowl and beat our nemesis, the Patriots. But my problem with Peterson is the aftermath of that Super Bowl and what happened to that team. Is you want to talk about a downward slide. That the Philadelphia Eagles, after winning that Super Bowl, took about as big a backward slide as you can take, I think, in my opinion.
True.
John,
True.
let's come back to the statistics. You mentioned the Patriots 50% on third down efficiency, the Dolphins 46.7. The game, like you said, the defense ruled the day. The defense set everything up for the Dolphins to be in a position to hold off the late rally by the Patriots there at the end of the day, and got us. Of course, we got the time of possession. But other than that, it was a very, very tight game when you look at the statistics, except on the total net yards, we got outgained almost by 100. It was 379 to 298.
Yeah, because we only threw the ball for 103 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to get a 300-yard total with that?
Well, and as you said, Waddle, we've got to get an offensive line to allow the quarterback to have a little bit more time to throw the ball. Everybody wants to pick on Tua Tagovailoa for saying that he can't throw the deep ball. No, he can't. You know why he can't throw the deep ball? Is he doesn't have any time to throw it. That's why Waddle.
Well, again, we understand that the Miami Dolphins offensive line has played poorly.
Yes.
It's makeshift for the most part. Liam Eichenberg does not belong at left tackle. He's a guard at best. Jesse Davis has struggled, but at the same time, some teams have come up with some interesting ways to blitz us, which Tua hasn't recognized. But this last game, the game before, we were 25% on third down, and we got blown out. I mean, you can't, because we didn't win on first and second down. But now you look at these rushing totals with Duke Johnson and Lindsey. That's a decent enough where you're winning on first and second down. You're keeping yourself third and short, moving the chains and staying on the field and keeping your defense rested. And that was the biggest difference between this game and the Tennessee game, was our offense at least got our defensive off the field. Because that game in Tennessee didn't really go south until about 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So when we keep those guys on defense healthy, they make plays. And again, they did a great job of disguising the 4 weak and 4 strong dogs and blitzes. They did a great job of that. Van Ginkel wound up having a hell of a year because people weren't blocking him because they didn't know how to count it up. They were confused. We confused other offenses how to do this. So, I mean, we look at these numbers all day. They took Waddle out of the game. But then Gesicki should step up. I mean, look what happened with the Tampa Bay Jets game a couple weeks ago with Antonio Brown. They took the wide receiver out of the game, and Gronk had a huge game with like 9 catches. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. And he got frustrated. He wasn't being targeted enough. But you didn't see Waddle do that. Waddle knew he wasn't getting the ball, and he knew he wound up being a decoy for most of the game. But he handled it well. He didn't get frustrated like a lot of prima donna wide receivers do. So there's a lot of good things here. Punting and kicking, I think we may have to make a change in both of those. I don't think we're getting the net punt. We had a decent day. He had a good day today.
He had another good game.
47.3, but you never know when he's going to shank one.
Right.
And then our field goal kicker, we definitely have to replace. That was 2 games this year that were cost by the field goal kicker. But everybody knew we were out of the playoffs, and Flores had that team stick together. Yep. And they went out and beat the Patriots for the second time in the last game of the year for a winning record. And I think, if anything, we should take that from this game, where this team didn't collapse when they were 1-7. This team didn't collapse after they missed the playoffs. They never gave up. Nope. And I would go with that. I don't agree with the Flores firing, but I understand it. And I understand from the organization what they did. It doesn't mean I like it. That's okay. I had an ex-wife that didn't like me. I got divorced. It's all right. It's not a big deal. But at the same time, Flores held that team together. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that in that last game when we had nothing to play for.
Absolutely. And that was one thing I was very concerned about this game, because I wanted to see them get that winning record. I thought that was important moving forward into the next season. And I thought that a loss to the Patriots, especially, this not only comes with a winning record, but it comes with the first time in 20 years since, what is it, 2001 or 2000 was the last time that we swept the
2000.
Patriots. 2000. So first time in 20
My last year.
Yeah. So
You haven't done it since I left. I'm the real reason that we have been winning.
all right.
There you go.
Somebody, hey, Victor, call Stephen Ross and tell him that we need to get John Bach back on the field
on the
in
team.
Miami, okay? John, you want to play or you want to coach?
Put me in charge of personnel.
There you go. Well, I'd put you in charge of personnel, but the only way that I would do that is that also I have to be able to put you in charge of demolition because you got to tear down that bubble.
Demolishing the dome.
Yes.
Hey, how about that clip? The Patriots, that's a big thing for the Dolphins, in my opinion. And I brought it up in previous episodes.
Yep.
That bubble is controlled environment. Mm-hmm. So I watched a YouTube clip of the Patriots winning some big game. It was like the second round of the playoffs, and the weather was terrible. It was like in Buffalo or somewhere, it's 35 degrees and raining and all that. And Belichick said, that's why we practice outside. Is so we can control the elements and the elements won't control us. Yeah. And you look at that dome or that bubble at the Dolphins facility, I would have tore it down years ago. Go play outside because that's where the weather was. Because in Tennessee, the weather was poor. Tua couldn't hang on to the ball. He fumbled it, threw picks, threw balls high. They need more work outside and less work inside that bubble. Yeah. That was always an advantage for Miami. Was we practiced in the elements. And since we've stopped doing that, our winning percentage has gone down. If you like analytics, that's the only correlation with analytics that makes sense for this Dolphins team is since you've got the bubble, your winning percentage has gone down.
That is true. And the other thing that I've always said, and I believe that this is true, you just have to look at the record. The record speaks for itself. I love Joe Robbie. I love the fact that Joe Robbie wanted to build his own stadium. But the mistake that he made was he backed the fans up too far away from the field. We were practically on top of the players in the Orange Bowl. And the only other thing I miss in the Orange Bowl other than the fact that we were right down there on them and it got noisy. It got noisy in the Orange Bowl because you got 80,000 screaming fans in there screaming at the top of their lungs and stomping on that steel floor. You can't make enough noise in Joe Robbie Stadium. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe not, but it was made as an all-purpose Merino
arena. That was the problem too.
Stadium. He also had to build that with bonds. Yeah. Joe Robbie never owned the stadium, and it actually cost his family a lot of money by him building that stadium himself. Right. And then when Huizenga bought it and took it over, all the Joe Robbie people that helped buy those bonds and support the stadium, Huizenga moved them out to the corners of the end zone, took all the way from the 40 to the 40 in seating. Anybody that knew Joe Robbie got moved out of those seats. So Joe Robbie's someone that's not remembered enough here in South Florida for his commitment to sports. And I don't know who you picked. If you had to pick a number one person in South Florida for sports, it's either Joe Robbie, it's Dan Marino, Don Shula, or it's Zoe. And in my opinion, those are the four guys that have changed sports here in South Florida. And I wish the Robbie family got more credit.
Well, I do too. And I'd throw one other name on there that's changed the South Florida landscape, and that would be Howard Schnellenberger, Miami, and then FAU.
But he was a Dolphin.
Yeah.
So he's got two to go from.
Yeah. But I was disappointed. I don't know the name of the family that's been behind all of the Shula hotels and the Shula steakhouses and all of that. But there was a very disturbing article to me. I mean, come on, coach has only been gone not even 2 years, and they're already taking his name off of the hotels.
Well, that's the way it works now.
I know. Everything's about that big old mighty dollar sign. Anything else, guys, from any of you that glares at you in regards to the statistics? Because Chris, you know that John and I are very, very big on diving through and diving into the statistics and finding the hidden causes of why we would have lost, or the hidden gorilla in the room, if you want to say it, of why we need to be careful, because we might have won, but you really need to look and see it was the defense that put us in the position to win. The offense did not win the game. They just kind of held on. So anything you guys can add? Chris, you go first.
Oh, really? The defense has won pretty much, ever since the winning streak, started, with the Houston Texans and, after that, the Baltimore. I mean, it was pretty much a defensive show from start to finish.
Pretty much. Even week one, if it's not Xavier Howard getting that fumble, New England's going in to win that game one.
We won that.
And we start out 0-8.
Right. If not for Xavier Howard recovering that fumble, we're 0-8.
Rodney.
So, yeah.
Well, every year when a season's over, you got guys that are free agents, and they always talk about trying to keep the core together of the defense when they play as well as they did. And pretty much for the most part, I think most of our guys are back. But the one guy that we need to find a way to re-sign is Agba. That guy is that dude's a machine. He's lights out, and he needs to stay. So I'm hoping they can work something out with him.
Well, and that's one thing that concerns me when you have when you have a coach that was, okay, some guys in the locker room didn't like him, but there's other guys in the locker room that did like him. So is a player, where is Agba on that side of the coin? Does he want to stay in Miami, or is he one of these players that I've already heard some rumblings? Chris, I think you would want to told me that there's absolutely some players down there in Miami have already called their agents and said, start finding me another team.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, ever since Flores has been fired, the current players down there are really, looking for other teams. Ever since the Flores, news.
I don't know if that's so much, John. Is that so much a fact that they fired Flores? Is that more of a fact of the circus that has become the Miami Dolphins organization?
It's a circus. Nobody cares who the head coach is. I mean, very few free agents are going to care who the head coach is. It's going to come down to money, but it's not going to come down to who the head coach is. Because before you ever want to win a Super Bowl, you want a second contract. And that's the most important thing. That's your family's future.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter here. Whatever we got to pay, we'll pay. There's selective free agents that are going to choose where they want to be and be that important. But I don't think any of them are in our market. I don't think we're going to go after any high-priced free agent that's maybe a 1, 2, 3 guy that who the coach is going to be significant.
Well, the biggest thing that I think that we need to get in the free agent market, I don't want to try this in the draft again. We've tried it. So we need a tackle. I believe that it's very, very
pair of tackles.
Yeah. But we definitely need to get at least one really good tackle, and definitely two, probably through free agency. Because if you look at our tackles this year, the two guys that played tackle enough to be rated by PFF, and out of the total number of players that were rated on PFF, there was 85 tackles. Jesse Davis rates out at number 82, and Liam Eichenberg rated out at number 84. That has to be improved.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, you need a full house.
Absolutely.
Well, exactly. I'm going to go ahead and look at guards
from
now.
Vegas, you need a full house.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I want aces over jacks. Give me 2 aces on the outside. Give me jacks underneath, or give me kings and queens. I don't really care. I'm looking for a full house right now. We got to find a way to put that together.
Well,
So
it gets a little better at guard.
Tackle, and I need a decent right tackle, and I need 3 maulers up front.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for a full house.
Well, it gets a little better at guard, but again, we do need to move on from Austin Jackson. Out of 84 guards rated this year, we got Austin Jackson comes in at number 76. While Robert Hunt on the right side came in at number 36. So we've got a guy over there at right
Robert
guard.
Hunt isn't even a top 20 guy in the NFL.
No, he's
at
number
guard.
36 at guard. So, yeah.
He's not even a top 20.
No.
But I was ready to give up on Robert Hunt.
I know you were.
I thought he had a great second half of the season. I thought he made big strides. And I'm a Lamar Hunt fan now. I thought he played really, really well the last 6, 7, 8 games. I thought because I was ready to cut him in week 4.
Yes.
But I think he really turned it on, and he turned what could have been a bad season into a good season for him. So I was really impressed that Lamar got better this year.
Yeah.
Or not
You
Lamar,
mean
Robert. Sorry.
Robert.
He's not the owner of the Chiefs.
And then you get to the center position. 38 guys graded out at center by PFF. Austin Ryder, who came in pretty much most of the season in relief of Michael Dieter, who went down with injury, he graded out 37th out of 38. Michael Dieter, 28th. So, and I think probably Michael Dieter probably could grade out a little bit better if he's healthy and played a full year. Maybe he would have gotten a little bit better. He missed how many games?
No idea.
He missed a ton.
You know what I was rated? I was rated number 3 in 98 when I played for the Dolphins. I was the 3rd best guard in the National Football League, 0.08 sacks per game. And I was a free agent. We got to find some guys, and Mark Dixon was way better than me. And Mike Sheldon was as good as me. We had 3, 4 guys that were free agents that stepped up and played well. And we're sitting on number 1 picks and early round picks, and they are not producing enough. So this staff has to find a way to go out and find some linemen. And they don't have to be number 1 picks. You can find one in the 5th round. You can find one on free agency.
Yep.
You can find an up-and-comer player that wants more than minimum on another team as a free agent. So there's ways to get it done. But when we did it, we didn't have number 1 picks. We did it with a variety of guys that were picked throughout the draft. And that's what Miami's got to get to. We can't just keep spending early draft choices on the wrong players because they have upside. Sooner or later, you got to get rid of going for the upside and take what the relevant is. Take what they are now. Are they good enough now? Right. I don't care if he has upside. Is he good enough to get me through a year or 2 years until I can find the right person with the upside and get them the experience that they need?
Well, we definitely that is if I'm Chris Greer, if I'm Stephen Ross, I'm looking at Chris Greer right now going, fix the offensive line. I don't care what it takes, fix it. Because we've got money. We're going to have probably the most cap money of any team, if not the second most. We all know that Flores, I'll give him credit. I mean, not Flores, Ross, he'll throw money at it. It's just some of the other moves that he makes are horrible. And I thought this is interesting to note, and I'll go to the running backs as well. Out of 39 quarterbacks that played enough, had enough snaps to be graded out at PFF, Tua. Any guesses on where he lands, guys?
Top 10, probably 12.
Nope. Wrong.
Somewhere in the middle.
Wrong.
25th.
For the averages per game, he's got to be top 10.
Nope. He graded out 25th. Now, that's overall. I think if you took in, 25th. Lamar Jackson actually graded out one spot above him, and Lamar Jackson didn't even play after the game against us. I think actually he may have played one more game. The top 10, everybody knows Tom Brady was number 1, followed by Joe Burrow. That's no surprise. Justin Herbert, number 3. That brings me to an interesting question. Omar Kelly said it, and I don't know. I mean, I like Omar. God bless him. I think he's great. I think he may be wrong on this one. It's been said, and if there was a rift between Tagovailoa and Coach Flores, I don't see how. I mean, the way that supposedly Tua was treated by Coach Flo, I think it goes to reason that Flores probably did want Justin Herbert. But even Omar Kelly is saying, look, he had so much control that we're finding out about now, supposedly, in that building, that if he really wanted Herbert would be in a Miami uniform. I still think
That's not true.
I think he got outvoted.
That's not true.
Yeah.
I've known Omar for years, and I don't really respect him that much as a reporter. I think he gets most things wrong. I don't think he gets most things right. I think he writes a lot of biased articles.
I've noticed that about him too. Yes, I have.
Absolutely.
To float his own narrative. So I'm calling BS on Omar right now. That did not happen. And what's more,
that kind of raised my eyebrows too, John.
But if you know Omar and he was in that locker room and he heard any of that, he would have written a story that Flores was mean to Tua or anything else. He didn't write that story either.
No.
He's a Johnny-come-lately trying to jump on the story. And, I don't care for his articles, and I don't read it.
Couldn't agree more.
All right.
I agree 100%.
I've read some of his stuff, and I don't know. Some of his stuff I've agreed with. Some of it is, like you said, John, is probably BS. Just trying to jump on a story and act like he was the guy that probably broke it. Some of it's okay. Some of it's a head scratcher. That one, though, I was kind of like you. I was like, that doesn't make any sense, because everything that I've heard all along was that basically we all knew Ross was enamored with Tua. And you want to talk about a bromance. That was a bromance for sure. And I think that Greer was in on the Tua train from the very beginning, starting in 2019 when we were all talking about tank for Tua. I think by the time they got around, I think Flores was probably like we were. He's probably looking at Tua, not prototypical size, doesn't have the arm strength. I don't think he's got the mental fortitude, obviously, to play the game. I mean, you can't handle somebody dropping an F-bomb on you. That's not how you talk to people. You're in the wrong league, okay? And I think, Herbert, we're sitting there, we're picking number 5. And, of course, Tua goes down with a serious hip injury. I don't know what I was more concerned about, his lack of size, his lack of arm strength, or his fragileness. And now finding out that he's got not only fragile with his bones, but he's also fragile in other ways. So you got Justin Herbert is sitting there at number 5, and I'm sitting there, I've been watching film of this kid. I've been reading everybody's draft analysis of this kid, and I'm like, he's there. Take Herbert. Tua. So
I wanted Herbert.
Well, I don't know. That was a tough decision, because I have I have my own things about recruiting.
Right.
I wouldn't take players from the islands, but I also wouldn't take players like I pass on. I didn't want Tua with that draft pick. I was just said, hey, look, if you're the Dolphins organization, do your due diligence and make the right pick for this team.
Yeah.
But I also didn't care for Herbert.
Yeah, you didn't like him because he's a homer.
He was another small town guy that stayed home.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about staying home, but little community guys are very, very tough when you put them in charge of $1 billion franchise or a $10 billion franchise. If they're only comfortable around their own people. I've been around quarterbacks like this. Jeff Brom, the head coach of Purdue, was one of the same ones who played 7 years in the National Football League, but he was another guy that never wanted to leave home in college, and he hung out with his high school buddies, and he had his own life outside of our university. I thought Herbert might be that same kind of guy. I really did. I wasn't sure about it. I just know that Mario coached him, and I have the utmost respect for Mario. But him and Tua, that's another reason I don't like guys from small towns. That worries me that they never try to put their foot out in the world and try to be successful, that they like being comfortable. And so, because the NFL is not comfortable, especially if you go to New York. Be a quarterback in New York. That media will destroy you faster than anything. So at least Miami doesn't have a brutal media. But if Tua's getting that upset, to me, he's mentally weak. Yep. And it doesn't make any sense because he's a Saban guy.
Yeah, I don't get it. But then again, we and to come back to your point, you didn't like either one of them. You had your reason for not liking Herbert. We all had reasons for not liking Tua coming out in that draft.
I don't like small quarterbacks.
You probably, and I don't either, and I didn't like a small quarterback that was hurt. Both of his ankles are tied together, and now he's got a bad hip. So, and now obviously he's got some other weaknesses. What would John in that position? You wouldn't have taken either one of those players. Would you have at that point just said best player available at our biggest position of need, other than quarterback?
I probably would have taken Kyle Pitts if I could have, but he was already gone. Where I would have made a deal to trade the 5th.
Well, you're talking Kyle Pitts was taken this year. Tua was taken last year.
Okay. I don't know who I would have taken that year of the draft. You're right there. Yeah. But if Tua wasn't, I said best player available or trade the pick.
Or
trade that pick and get us down the road. Because that class was deep.
Yeah.
I mean, that they had a deep class. You could have went 15 and still got one.
Sure.
And picked up another number 1 and another number 2, and it'd give you 2 other players to help rebuild this team. So that's what I thought. Hindsight's always 20/20. But Tua's, he's got a winning record. History hasn't written the book yet on Tua.
No.
The book hasn't been written on him. He may end up being a great quarterback one day. He was adequate. But like I said, to me, Tua was just a guy that was just good enough to get you beat. I mean, he'd win enough games because he is a smart football player and he's talented. But his ceiling was low, like a Colin Cowherd would say. Tua had a low ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I think if Tua was one of the guys instrumental in helping get Flores out of the building, that kid's going to have a ton of pressure. He's not just going to have pressure now from the fan base. He was already going to have that coming into next season. Now he's going to have some more pressure. It's going to be exerted on him from upper management within the organization. Not outwardly, the fans, us as fans, we're not going to see it. There's going to be some pressure on him to play and play at a high level.
Well, ask her, though. Why didn't we take T.J. Watt? Who did we take? The other defensive end? Charlie something?
Yeah. We took Charles Harris.
Why didn't we take T.J. Watt?
Charles Harris.
Yeah. We take Charles Harris, who's now not even with the team.
Charles Harris.
Yeah. We take Charles Harris.
Greer's made more bad calls than anybody. And then he drafted all the problem kids that Flores obviously couldn't get along with. And Kenny, now everyone's just making up lies.
Yeah.
Kenny Stills talking about PEDs when he knows that's not a real thing. Tua being 200 players, I could care less. Tua, whatever. I mean, it was a tough season. They got a winning record out of it. But again, we're going into another offseason with turmoil.
And question marks.
We had Deshaun Watson early this year. I mean, chaos doesn't sell tickets, Mr. Ross. Remember that. And we're in chaos again this year, starting the year anew versus trying to build for something. And, again, you taught players they can't trust the people you're hiring because you keep firing everybody.
Well, and
no one feels good in that building right now.
No.
They have things they should be proud of. But at the same time, the way that the owner's handling this right now, I think is extremely poor.
Well, it's funny to me. You mentioned chaos and you mentioned build in the same paragraph there. And I'm going to tell you, I agree with you. Mr. Ross, chaos in your front office and chaos in your locker room is not going to sell tickets. Building a racetrack and having the parking lot that the fans all have to walk through and all the walkways that we walk through to get to the stadium, having that all torn up for the entire season when you told us it was going to be finished by opening day, and having us walk through mud on rainy days, which we would have all had to walk through mud on Sunday. That's not going to sell tickets either. I'm sorry, Formula One doesn't sell football tickets, and having the Sabrina sisters or whatever their name is, having them come out there as part owners and having Gloria Estefan and all these other celebrities coming down on your orange carpet, that's not selling tickets either. This is a football team. Yeah,
well, they're not really celebrities. I mean, Jennifer
no, they're
Lopez,
not.
Isn't she getting Social Security? AARP?
Probably. I don't know.
She's a celebrity 30 years ago.
Yeah. But the whole thing, I hate to say it, well, our theme music today pretty much sums it all up. All right, guys, we got to talk about, and this is going into Greer, and I want to wrap up with this. We talked about this last week, and we wanted to come back, and we wanted to see what did Greer do with the Laramie Tunsil trade and the picks that he got in that trade. So here's what he got, all right? Basically, let's just recap the terms of the trade. So we sent Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills a 2020 fourth-round pick and a 2021 sixth-round pick to the Texans in exchange for Julian Davenport and Johnson Batamosi, and then their first-round picks in 2020 and 2021, and a second-round pick in 2021. Now, Julian Davenport is now with the Colts, and I think he ended up on IR. And Johnson Batamosi is not even in the NFL. So the Dolphins ended up drafting Noah Igbenogany and Solomon Kindley with the first-round pick in 2020 after making a trade with Green Bay to go down from 26th to 30th overall, threw in their own fourth-round selection to move up in that round then to get Kindley. Then they got Waddle with the 2021 first-round pick after they moved from 3rd to 12th back up to 6th, and then they took Holland with the 2021 second-round selection. So if you break it down, the players still in place with their new team. Basically, the trade was Tunsil for Waddle, Igbenogany, Holland, and Kindley, and then now the 2022 first-round pick from the 49ers because we moved that. We got that when we moved from 3rd to 12th. So basically, players that have made a difference for us, we got 2 players out of all that.
Well,
They made huge impacts.
2 of them
yeah,
did.
they did. I mean, Waddle's a receiver for the future.
Yeah.
That was worth it. But Tunsil, I mean, I don't know how you outweigh those 2 guys versus how good Laramie Tunsil is.
Well, Larry Tunsil's an all-pro. Obviously not a bad team.
But you trade an all-pro, you traded an all-pro tackle for 2 very good players.
Yes.
I think Waddle's going to be all-pro. It's kind of a wash.
Yeah, in a way.
I think it's a wash.
Well, I like the fact that we got a guy that's probably going to be an all-pro and a receiver in a Miami uniform for quite a long time in Waddle. And I think we got probably one of the best up-and-coming young safeties in the National Football League. I think Holland is going to be a star.
I mean, if there's a case to be made for Javon Holland being Rookie of the Year.
Oh, absolutely.
If it wasn't for Micah Parsons.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it wasn't for Micah Parsons, you might be talking Holland right now.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think Holland. I think he was a big spark in that defense. That kind of lit their fire a little bit when we went on the 7-0 run.
I think him and Brandon Jones are probably the most talented young pair of safeties in the league, and it's good to know we're going to have them both back there for years to come.
Yes.
It's encouraging.
Brandon Jones is going to be a real good player for years to come, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Chris, what do you think of Javon Holland?
Oh, Javon Holland, I'm real excited to see what he can contribute next season and beyond. I mean, he's going to be like a real solid player, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to be capable of bringing to the team in the future.
Well, I think there's some bright spots, and obviously we all know that there's a few things need to be fixed. Duke Johnson, I'd like to see him back. I think we can get him. I like Phillips. Obviously, I like Jalen Phillips over on the defense as well. I like Phillip Lindsay. I don't know why I keep trying to call him Phillips. I like Phillip Lindsay. I like Duke Johnson. I think those 2 guys came in. They showed up, and they pretty much showed Salvin Ahmed and Myles Gaskin, look, boys, hold my beer because I'm going in the game. So,
Yep.
Any other thoughts, guys? I'll just go down the list one by one. Chris.
Yeah, I'm real excited about Duke Johnson. I think he's really going to – I don't think he's an every down back, but I'm real I'm pleased with what he brings to the team. He really runs hard. He really tries to break through the holes when there is a gap in between. So I'm really excited to see what he does in 2022.
Great. And Rodney, what's your thoughts?
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm really encouraged for next year. I think we're really in place. I just hope, we get a coach in there that hires somebody that's very offensive minded, that he knows to run the offense. And hopefully through the draft and maybe even in free agency, we improve that side of the ball. Because defense, we're set. I think we're going to be set for a while.
I agree with you. I think on the defensive side of the ball, I think we look really good. So offense that needs the help. John, final thoughts?
I don't know. What's a suicide hotline number?
I got a whole other reason for wanting to possibly call that, but I won't.
I think I'm in the same opinion as everybody else. I think our defense is moving in the right direction. I think we're young enough over there and pretty good. We got a lot of problems on the offense we got to fix. We have an offensive line that's got to be replaced. We have to find an every down running back. We have to make a decision that quarterback is Tua the guy. And then we're going to have to sign Gesicki in the offseason and then make decisions on Devontae Parker and Preston Williams and Fuller. I mean, you're going to lose 3 wide receivers.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 8 players on offense that potentially need to be replaced. And at the same time, bring in a good head coach that can bring in the right offensive coordinator for this team and this personnel. It's going to be a tough offseason. I wish them the best, and I hope they all can figure it out.
Well, I do too. We all do. As Dolphin fans, and we've all been Dolphin fans for quite a long time. So it's definitely something we want to see this 20-year slide and this 20-year chaos end. We want to win a playoff game, for crying out loud. We don't want to just win a playoff game. We want to get to the playoffs and win, and then we want to build on that. We want to get a championship. I know Mr. Ross wants a championship. I mean, who wouldn't? If you own a team or you're even a fan of a team, you want a championship. So we all want that. We just hope we can make the right decisions this time moving forward and get this thing right and right this ship. Guys,
I want to add one thing is we really got a work cut out for us on offense to rebuild that, because if you've looked at next year's schedule, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's brutal. It really is.
Yeah,
it's
brutal for sure.
Got a lot to fix.
Yep. Awful lot to fix. Hey, great having you guys on the panel today. John, it's great having you all season as my co-host. We need to, I guess, kind of figure out. I don't think we definitely don't want to do, or there's no need to do a show every week now. I think we can probably take a little time off and maybe do a show like maybe in a month from now. But been certainly fun having you on, and had a lot of fun spending time with you down there in South Florida, and look forward to doing that again. Chris, Rodney, I'm glad you guys joined us today. It was a great show. It was great having you on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you. And to all the Dolphins fans out there, look, keep the faith and hope we can eventually turn this thing around. I usually say we'll see you next week, hopefully with a check mark in the W column. That's not happening next week. We will make an announcement soon on dolphinradio.com of when our next show will be. But we want to probably get through the Super Bowl and probably get through a little bit of the free agency period having started right around March 16th. And then we'll probably do a show some point around there. So it could be a couple of months before we come back. Maybe some snippets here or there from yours truly of something breaks that's newsworthy. But other than that, it was a good season for Dolphin Radio, not so much for our beloved Miami Dolphins, but we will see you soon right here on Dolphin Radio. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching or listening. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And for more great content, check us out on the web at www.dolphinradio.com.